Destroy the old you, I rebuild from zero. The moment you make a single, searing decision that who you've been is no longer acceptable, everything changes. Right now, you are reading this because some part of you already knows the truth. You've been circling the same patterns, replaying the same defeats, sitting in the same life year after year, and wondering why nothing shifts. The world hasn't failed you. You've been failing yourself, and deep in your gut, you know it. Here's the brutal reality nobody wants to say out loud. You cannot construct a new existence while clutching the wreckage of the old one. Real transformation demands something radical. The old version of you, every excuse, every comfortable lie, every soft compromise must be obliterated completely, without sentiment, without hesitation, without looking back. Only then can something extraordinary rise from the rubble. This is the journey we're taking together. You'll learn to stare unflinching into the mirror of brutal truth. You'll learn to shatter the chains your past has wrapped around your ankles. You'll strip out every poisonous habit that has been quietly draining the life from your potential. You'll forge a warrior's mindset, sever ties with toxic forces, and architect daily routines so powerful that success becomes as automatic as breathing. You'll build skills that command respect, create financial foundations that withstand any storm, and learn to transform the rawest, most agonizing pain of your life into the fuel that drives you forward. This isn't inspiration. This isn't motivation. This is surgery, deep, permanent, life-altering transformation that reshapes you at the cellular level. It will be uncomfortable. Growth always is. But if you commit, truly commit, you will emerge from this process sharper, stronger, and utterly unstoppable. The old you has had its time. That chapter is finished. Now we burn it down and build something magnificent in its place. The journey doesn't begin tomorrow. It doesn't begin when you feel ready. It begins here. It begins now. Let's go. Chapter 1. Face the brutal truth about yourself. Every genuine transformation in human history has been born from a single agonizing moment. The moment someone finally stopped lying to themselves. Not a comfortable truth, not a softened, filtered, palatable version of reality. The raw, unvarnished, gut-punching truth that most people spend their entire lives running from. The kind of truth that strips away every illusion and leaves you standing, naked in front of who you've actually become. Most people are expert architects of self-deception. They build elaborate structures of blame, excuses, and rationalization, blaming the economy, blaming their upbringing, blaming other people, blaming circumstances, blaming anything and anyone, except the one face that stares back at them in the mirror every morning. And yet, beneath every excuse, beneath every story they've rehearsed so many times it almost sounds true, they know. They've always known. And so do you. Here's the fundamental law of transformation. You cannot change what you refuse to confront. Every weakness you look away from quietly grows roots. Every bad habit you excuse with a "just this once" digs itself deeper into the foundation of your identity. Every fear you sidestep grows larger in the dark. The old you feeds on denial the way a parasite feeds on a host. The new you begins with ruthless honesty. Maybe you've been lazy when discipline was needed. Maybe you've been inconsistent when commitment was called for. Maybe you've surrendered control of your life to fear so many times that fear has started making decisions for you. Acknowledge it. Own it. Because here is the paradox. The moment you stop protecting yourself from the truth, you reclaim enormous power. You stop being the victim of your circumstances and become the author of your choices. Right now, grab a notebook or simply sit in stillness and face what you've been avoiding. Ask yourself the questions that sting. Where have I been quietly sabotaging myself? Whose fault have I been making my problems? What stories have I been telling myself to justify staying exactly where I am? Write without censorship. Write without softening. No performance, no audience, just you and the truth. This part of the journey is invisible to the world. Nobody will applaud you for it. Nobody will see you do it. But this private reckoning, this moment of raw, undefended honesty, is the precise point where everything in your life either changes or stays the same forever. Here's the gift hiding inside the pain of honesty: clarity. The truth, as devastating as it can feel in the moment, is profoundly liberating. When you finally see yourself without filters, it's like someone has thrown open the windows of a room that's been sealed for years. Yes, the light is blinding at first, but you can finally see what's been rotting in the corners, the patterns, the behaviors, the false beliefs that have quietly been stealing your life. So, make yourself this promise right now. No more lies. No more convenient blindness. No more hiding behind who you wish you were instead of facing who you've become. Look at yourself completely. The victories and the failures, the beauty and the wreckage. Own all of it, because you cannot rebuild what you refuse to see. And if you're brave enough to face the most uncomfortable truths about yourself right now, you are already light, years ahead of the person you were yesterday. This is where the old you begins to crack and crumble. And that crumbling, that's not destruction. That's the beginning of everything. Chapter 2. Break free from the chains of your past. Your past is not a prison, unless you hand it the keys. Every single person walking this earth carries a collection of memories like weight on their back. Things they've done, things done to them, failures that left marks, losses that hollowed them out, betrayals that reshaped how they see the world. Some of those memories are precious, but many of them are chains. Heavy, rusting, relentless chains wrapped around your ankles that drag against every forward step you try to take. And here's the hard truth you need to hear right now. As long as you keep dragging those chains, you will never truly move. You cannot pour the foundation of a new life in the same exact spot where the old one collapsed. So many people live as prisoners of their own story. They wear their wounds like badges of identity. They say things like, "This is just who I am," as if who they are was determined at some fixed point in the past and cannot be renegotiated. They use what happened to them as a permanent explanation for what's still happening to them. But those are just stories. Stories have authors, and authors can rewrite them. Your past is a lesson, not a life sentence, and lessons exist to teach, not to trap. Perhaps someone you trusted shattered your faith in people. Perhaps you poured everything into something that collapsed anyway. Perhaps you grew up in circumstances that were painful, chaotic, or deeply unfair. Perhaps you've made choices that still wake you up at 3 in the morning with a sickening weight on your chest. Whatever it is, hear this. The pain of your past only holds power when you continuously breathe life into it. Every time you replay that memory, every time you mentally rehearse the moment things broke apart, you're not processing it, you're feeding it. You're choosing to live there. Breaking free begins with a decision so simple, it sounds almost insultingly easy. Stop living in the past. You can visit it for a moment to learn, to understand, to extract the lesson buried in the wreckage. But you cannot set up camp there. Think of it like a rear-view mirror on a highway. It has its purpose. A quick glance tells you something useful. But stare at it for too long, and you'll crash into what's directly in front of you. Accept this as completely and as deeply as you can. The past will never change, not 1 second of it. The only things you hold true power over are the meaning you attach to what happened and the actions you choose starting right now. You cannot rewrite history, but you can radically rewrite how it defines you. The worst thing that has ever happened to you can become the origin story of your greatest strength. If you choose to use it that way, ask yourself honestly, what chains am I still carrying? Is it resentment toward someone who wounded you? Guilt over a choice you'd give anything to take back? Shame you've never let anyone see? Anger you've been holding so long it's become part of your personality? Name it, write it down, call it out into the open, because you cannot release what you've never truly acknowledged. Then breathe and say something you may need to repeat every day for months. Asterisk, this does not control me anymore. Asterisk, forgiving the past doesn't mean you approve of it. It doesn't mean you pretend it didn't leave a mark. It means you refuse to let it keep stealing your future. Forgiveness isn't weakness. Forgiveness is the act of cutting the chain and handing yourself back the key to your own life. Some people reading this will resist. They'll think, or maybe even say, "You don't understand what happened to me." And perhaps that's true, but here's what I know with absolute certainty. Every person who has ever faced devastating pain has stood at a crossroads. You can stay in the rubble and let it define every day for the rest of your life. Or you can rise from it and let it forge you into something with a strength you could never have developed otherwise. The past is either the anchor that holds you at the bottom, or the foundation stone from which you build your ascension. That choice belongs entirely to you. Chapter 3. Eliminate weak habits that are destroying you. You don't rise to the level of your ambitions. You fall to the level of your habits. Sit with that for a moment. You can have a vision so powerful it brings tears to your eyes. You can have dreams that could change your life, your family, your community, your world. You can carry inspiration so fierce it feels like electricity in your chest. But if your daily habits are weak, if they are the habits of someone who has already given up, they will silently, systematically dismantle every dream you've ever had. They will erode your potential the way water erodes stone, slowly, invisibly, relentlessly. Until one day you wake up and realize years have slipped by, and you are still standing in the same exact place. Most people don't fail because they lack ambition. They fail because between the inspiring moments, they keep making the same small, destructive choices. Over and over, day after day. Weak habits are not dramatic. They don't announce themselves. They feel harmless, comfortable even. A little indulgence here, a skipped commitment there. One more hour of distraction before getting to what actually matters. But they compound. Just like interest, they compound with brutal mathematical precision, until your life has become the sum total of every soft choice you allowed yourself to make. Look at where you are right now. Your health, your relationships, your finances, the level of meaning and aliveness you feel in your day-to-day existence. Every single one of those things is a direct reflection of the habits you've been practicing consistently. This is not judgment. It's physics. Actions repeated over time produce outcomes. And whatever outcomes you're living with right now are telling you everything you need to know about the habits that built them. If you want to rebuild yourself from the ground up, you cannot simply stack new habits on top of old destructive ones. That's like painting over mold. You have to go in and tear out the rot first. Start by identifying them with ruthless precision. Write out your typical day from the moment your eyes open to the moment you close them. Be savagely honest. Where is time evaporating? Where are you choosing comfort over discipline? Where is distraction winning the battle for your attention over and over again? The first step to eliminating a weak habit is flooding it with light. What lives in darkness has power. What you expose, you can deal with. Maybe you spend hours each day lost in the bottomless scroll of your phone, watching other people live their lives while yours quietly passes. Maybe you hit snooze until your mornings are gone, beginning each day already behind, already in defeat. Maybe you say yes to everything that drains you, because you cannot tolerate the discomfort of saying no. These patterns seem small in isolation, but stacked together over months and years, They become the architecture of a small, unfulfilled life. Once you've identified them, cut them out. Not with hesitation, not with "I'll try." Not with negotiations and exceptions. With decisiveness. Trying is soft language. Deciding is a different thing entirely. And here's a strategy that works. Don't just remove, replace. A void left by an eliminated habit will pull you back in. It's gravity. Instead, deliberately place something constructive in the gap. Replace the late night mindless scrolling with 10 minutes of reading or journaling. Move your alarm across the room and replace the snooze ritual with one small, empowering action the moment your feet hit the floor. Design the replacement before you need it. So when the moment of weakness comes, and it will come, you've already decided what you're doing instead. Tell someone. Write it on the wall. Make the habit visible and accountable, because weak habits flourish in secrecy. The moment you drag them into the open, they begin to lose their grip. Here's what's truly at stake, though. Eliminating weak habits isn't just a lifestyle upgrade. It's an identity transformation. Every single time you refuse to give in to a destructive pattern, you send a signal to the deepest part of yourself. Asterisk, I am no longer that person. Asterisk, that message is the hammer that chips away at old you, one small deliberate choice at a time. There will be resistance. Your mind and body have been doing this for years. These patterns are neurological grooves. They will resist. Comfort will call to you with a voice that sounds completely reasonable. But comfort and growth cannot occupy the same space. One always costs you the other. Pick one weak habit, just one, and eliminate it this week. One, then another. This process may feel slow. It isn't. It's the only thing that actually works. The old you was constructed from weak daily decisions. The new you is constructed from strong ones. And the only way to cross that divide is through the doorway of the small, consistent, daily choices that nobody sees, but that ultimately determine everything. Chapter 4. Build a warrior mindset. Plans won't carry you through what's coming. Dreams won't either. Motivation, that electric feeling you get after watching something inspiring or reading something powerful, won't be enough, because here's what nobody tells you. Motivation is a weather system. It shifts. It disappears. It was never meant to be the engine. What carries you through the hardest stretches of your transformation is something deeper, quieter, and far more permanent. It's a mindset, not the soft, affirmational kind you write on a sticky note, but a fortress, a state of inner architecture so solid, so unshakable, that when life does what it always does, when it tests you, breaks you down, strips away your certainty, and leaves you standing in the wreckage of plans that didn't survive contact with reality, you don't fold. You don't run. You meet it. This is what I call a warrior mindset. Not aggression, not brute force, not arrogance. A warrior mindset is the unbreakable commitment to stay in the arena no matter what. It's the internal fire that keeps burning long after the wind has tried 100 times to put it out. Life will test you. Count on it. There will be seasons where everything you've worked for seems to collapse simultaneously. People you trusted will disappoint you. Circumstances will conspire against your plans. And your own mind, your own relentless internal narrator, will try with everything it has to convince you that you're not built for this. That quitting is the only rational response. Warriors are not people who never hear that voice. Warriors are people who hear it and move forward anyway. Building this mindset begins with a single, irreversible decision. Stop running from discomfort. The ordinary person is in constant negotiation with pain, always seeking the path of least resistance, always looking for the exit that leads to easier. But the warrior leans into discomfort. They've learned what most people never discover. That discomfort is not the enemy. Discomfort is the curriculum. Every time you choose the harder option, every extra rep when your body is begging you to stop, every hour worked on your vision when exhaustion is pulling you toward distraction, every moment you speak when fear is telling you to stay silent, you are training your mind to operate at a higher level. Warriors also prepare. They don't sit back and hope the next storm passes over them. They build armor in advance. They strengthen their mind every single day, reading books that challenge their thinking, cultivating relationships with people who demand more of them, practicing gratitude when it would be easier to complain, building the muscle of focus in a world engineered to fracture it. You must also master what you say to yourself. The inner monologue running in the background of your consciousness is shaping your experience of reality at every moment. When that voice whispers, "I can't handle this," the warrior interrupts it with something different. "I have survived hard things before. I will survive this too." At first, it sounds hollow, forced, almost theatrical, but repetition rewires the brain. Over time, what was performance becomes default. And understand this clearly. Courage is not the absence of fear. Fear is present for everyone. The warrior is simply someone who has made a decision that fear does not get a vote. You have already been afraid and acted anyway. You've done it before. That same capacity exists inside you right now, waiting to be called upon again. Start small. You don't rebuild a mindset in one afternoon. Set one hard target for today. One thing that pushes you past your comfort zone. Wake up an hour earlier. Have the conversation you've been avoiding. Give an hour to your dream when every excuse in the world is telling you to wait. Win the small moments, because small victories build the neural architecture of real confidence. Not the kind that depends on things going well. The kind that holds steady when everything is going wrong. One more key. Stop expending energy on what you cannot control. You cannot govern other people's behavior, opinions, or choices. You cannot rewind time. You cannot guarantee outcomes. but you can control your response, your attitude, your effort, your next decision. When you concentrate your power on that narrow band of genuine control, you become extraordinarily effective. And that's where the real leverage is. The world will not become easier, but you will become more capable than it. And one day, the obstacles that used to break you open will become the moments that prove to you, and to anyone watching, exactly who you've become. Chapter 5. Cut off toxic influences without regret. You cannot rebuild your life in the same environment that dismantled it. This might be the most uncomfortable chapter you'll encounter, because it's not about something abstract like habits or mindset. It's about people, real people, some of whom you've known for years, some of whom you may love, and the truth that has to be spoken here, even though it hurts, is this: not everyone in your current life belongs in your future. We are deeply social creatures. The need for connection is wired into our biology. Walking away from relationships, even destructive ones, triggers the same neural pathways as physical pain. This is why so many people stay surrounded by influences that are slowly suffocating their growth. It's not stupidity, it's humanity. But your humanness, left unchecked, will sacrifice your entire potential on the altar of belonging. Take a moment and honestly evaluate the people you spend the most time with. Not a surface evaluation, a real one. When you share your dreams with them, do you feel lifted? Or do you sense the almost imperceptible weight of their skepticism, their subtle discouragement, their comfortable certainty that things like that don't happen for people like you? When you succeed, do they celebrate? Or is there something in their eyes that looks less like joy and more like threat? Toxic people are rarely obvious about it. They come wearing the masks of friends, partners, family, colleagues. On the surface, they care about you, but their behaviors tell a different story. They gossip. They complain and pull others into their orbit of complaint. They plant tiny seeds of doubt in the soil of your ambitions. They are weeds, and weeds don't announce themselves. They just quietly use all the light and water meant for something beautiful. Here's something worth knowing. You do not have to hate someone to walk away from them. You don't need a dramatic confrontation, a final burning of bridges, a cold declaration of war. You simply need to recognize, calmly and without cruelty, that this relationship is no longer aligned with the direction you're growing, and quietly, deliberately create distance. This isn't about superiority. It's about alignment. It's about protecting the ecosystem of your growth. And the toxic influences in your life aren't only people. They include what you consume daily, the media you feed your mind with, the social feeds you scroll through for hours, absorbing anxiety, outrage, comparison, and manufactured reality. The conversations you repeatedly engage in that leave you feeling smaller, more cynical, or more afraid. Your mental environment shapes your internal world just as powerfully as your physical environment shapes your body. If you are constantly pouring negativity into your system, you will carry that energy into every aspect of your life. Now, let's address the guilt. The guilt that makes people stay in destructive environments long past the point where they know they need to leave. I've known them my whole life. They were there for me once. Family is family. These thoughts feel sacred, and they are up to a point. But here's what's also true. Loyalty that flows in only one direction is not loyalty. It's servitude. If someone consistently diminishes your vision, disrespects your boundaries, or poisons the ground you're trying to grow in, staying loyal to them is an act of betrayal toward yourself. You are not responsible for saving anyone. Read that again. You can love people deeply and still choose to love them from a distance. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can offer someone is the example of what's possible when a person refuses to stay small, an example they can only witness if you stop letting them pull you back down. Yes, there will be loneliness. Growth almost always involves a season of it. The space between who you were and who you're becoming can feel profoundly empty, but loneliness is temporary. The damage done by remaining in toxic relationships can last a lifetime, and the space you create by stepping away will eventually be filled, not with people who tolerate your mediocrity, but with people who demand your excellence, who believe in your vision, who challenge you to be everything you're actually capable of being. You've worked too hard for a future that deserves better company than your past. Chapter 6. Master the power of self-control. Strip away every strategy, every system, every piece of advice in this entire journey, and what remains as the single most foundational skill is this: self-control. Without it, everything else eventually collapses. A powerful vision without self-control is just daydreaming. Strong habits without self-control erode the moment life applies pressure. Even the most unshakable mindset, untethered from self-control, becomes noise. Self-control is the invisible architecture beneath every transformation that lasts. We live inside the most comprehensively designed distraction machine in human history. Every notification, every advertisement, every perfectly engineered dopamine trigger has been crafted by brilliant people whose entire purpose is to interrupt your control over your own attention and actions. Everywhere you turn, something is pulling at your impulses, offering you instant gratification, engineered comfort, the quick relief of avoidance. Most people live in a state of continuous reaction to these forces. They eat what's immediately in front of them. They say what they feel without filtering it through their values. They chase the feeling that's loudest in the moment without stopping to ask what that feeling is costing their future. That is not freedom. That is slavery wearing the disguise of freedom. The old you lived largely on autopilot, reactive, emotionally driven. easily ambushed by temptation, running the same programs day after day without ever stopping to ask if those programs are actually taking you anywhere you want to go. The new you is different. The new you is deliberate, and deliberate action requires self-control. Self-control is not about becoming a rigid, joyless machine. It's about becoming the kind of person who pauses before acting, who creates space between emotion and response, who asks not, "What do I want right now?" but "What do I actually want my life to look like?" and then acts accordingly. Imagine a vehicle hurtling down a highway with no braking system. That's a person without self-control, moving fast, generating noise, but incapable of stopping or steering with purpose. Self-control is the braking system. It gives you the capacity to slow down, to evaluate, to choose direction rather than simply react to whatever force is pushing you in the moment. Building it starts with awareness. You cannot govern a pattern you've never noticed. Begin to observe yourself. Track your triggers, the specific situations, emotions, people, and environments that tend to launch you into impulsive behavior. Maybe stress sends you toward food you don't need. Maybe boredom turns into hours of mindless consumption. Maybe anger detonates words you can't take back. See the pattern before it sees you. Then practice what I call the pause. When an impulse fires, don't fight it head on. Don't suppress it through sheer willpower. Breathe, count, create 5 seconds of space between the urge and the response. In that tiny window of time, everything changes. You get to choose. You can still act on the impulse, or you can act on your values. That choice, made consistently, changes the entire trajectory of your life. Don't rely exclusively on willpower. It's a finite resource. Design systems instead. Willpower depletes. Systems don't. Make the right choice the path of least resistance, and the wrong choice harder to access. Remove the junk food, so the decision doesn't have to be made in a moment of weakness. Turn off the notifications, so you don't have to resist them 40 times an hour. Architect your environment to work for your goals rather than against them. One more critical truth. Self-control doesn't mean denying or suppressing what you feel. Feel everything. Feel the anger, the fear, the temptation, the exhaustion. You're human, but don't let your emotions navigate. You acknowledge them. You respect what they're telling you. And then you choose your response based on who you want to be, not on what feels easiest in the moment. This is real strength. Not the performance of strength, the actual, quiet, unglamorous, daily practice of choosing your future self over your present impulse. Every time you make that choice, you carve the new you deeper into existence. Chapter 7. Design your life from zero. When you've done the work, when you've shattered the illusions, cut the chains, cleared the toxic soil, and reclaimed your own mind, you find yourself standing somewhere extraordinary. A blank space, terrifying and magnificent in equal measure. This is zero, and zero is not nothing. Zero is pure, uncontaminated potential. It's the architect's empty lot before the blueprint, the sculptor's uncarved stone, the writer's blank page before the first line changes everything. Most people never reach this place because they never do the demolition work required to get here. They live their entire lives in the renovation mindset, patching over cracks, repainting old walls, rearranging furniture in a house built on someone else's design. But you are here to build from the ground up. That means starting with vision, not a vague, comfortable, half-formed sense of better. A clear, specific, visceral vision of the life you are building. Close your eyes and project yourself 5 years forward. What does your life actually look like? Not what seems realistic. Not what other people would find reasonable. What do you see when you imagine the best possible version of your existence? Where are you? How do you begin your mornings? Who surrounds you? Most importantly, what do you feel? Not just on the good days, but on the ordinary ones. That feeling is the compass. If you can feel it before you've built it, you can build toward it. Vision is the destination. But without architecture, you'll wander in circles with beautiful intentions and no arrival. The architecture starts with your values, the non-negotiable principles that define who you are when no one is watching. Freedom, growth, service, creativity, health, integrity. Identify your values with precision because they become the filter through which every future decision passes. When something aligns with your values, it belongs in your new life. When it doesn't, no matter how tempting, no matter how much external pressure surrounds it, it doesn't. Break your vision into goals. Concrete, measurable, time-bound targets that create the roadmap between where you are and where you're going. If the vision is financial freedom, the first goal is something specific, an emergency fund, a skill that generates income, a debt eliminated. If the vision is physical transformation, the first goal is 3 workouts a week, not the marathon finish line. Break it down until the next step is so clear you cannot reasonably avoid it. And as you design, be ferociously selective about what gets included. This is your fresh start. This is your one chance to build only what genuinely matters. That means ruthlessly declining every commitment, relationship, and obligation that doesn't serve the person you're building yourself to become. Protect your time and energy as though they are the most valuable substances on earth. Because they are. Periodically ask yourself this question and let it cut through everything. If I were designing this life completely from scratch, would I choose this? Apply it to your work, your routines, your relationships, even your physical environment. If the honest answer is no, start planning your exit, even if the transition takes time. Speaking of environment, it matters far more than most people acknowledge. The space you inhabit is constantly communicating something to your nervous system. A cluttered, chaotic environment sends a message of disorder. A clean, intentional environment sends a message of respect for your time and focus. Your surroundings either pull you toward your vision or pull you back toward your old patterns. Design them deliberately. Patience is required here, and patience is not passive. It's an active discipline. A seed planted in properly prepared soil does not need to be dug up every 3 days to check on its progress. It needs consistent water, appropriate light, and time. Your new life is the same. You're going to do the work and then trust the compound effect, understanding that growth is happening beneath the surface, even when you can't see it yet. Every choice you make now is a vote for the identity you're constructing. Over time, those votes accumulate into a character so undeniable, so clearly defined, that slipping back into the old you becomes genuinely impossible. Design that life, build it deliberately, and never settle for someone else's blueprint when you have the extraordinary capacity to create your own. Chapter 8. Build unshakable daily routines. You don't need a dramatic breakthrough. You don't need a lightning bolt of revelation. You don't need one perfect day where everything aligns, and you finally find the version of yourself you've been searching for. What you need is far less dramatic and far more powerful. The right actions, repeated every single day without exception. Your daily routines are the operating system of your life. They run in the background, invisible, automatic, relentless, quietly producing the exact outcomes you experience in every area of your existence. If that operating system is filled with weak, directionless subroutines, if your days are scattered, reactive, and driven by whatever demands the most immediate attention, your life will reflect that chaos with perfect fidelity. But if your routines are strong, intentional, and aligned with who you're becoming, they will carry you forward even on the days when motivation has vanished completely, when enthusiasm is nowhere to be found, when every part of you wants to stop. This is the critical distinction that separates the people who actually change from the people who only ever intend to. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are seasonal. Routines are a system, and systems operate regardless of how you feel. Think of a commercial aircraft on autopilot crossing an ocean. The pilot isn't manually controlling every second of that flight. The system is. It holds the course. It makes the micro adjustments. It handles the ordinary so the human capacity can be reserved for the extraordinary. That's what a powerful routine does for your daily life. It holds the course when your emotions are trying to steer you off it. Your mornings deserve particular attention because they are a declaration. How you begin your day is a statement about what you believe your life is worth. If you wake up to chaos, grabbing your phone immediately, absorbing other people's emergencies and anxieties, lurching reactively into the first demand that hits you, you have already surrendered the morning before it had a chance. The day owns you. But when you begin with intention, when you wake at a chosen time. Hydrate your body, move, express gratitude, and deliberately identify the 1 or 2 priorities that would make this day genuinely successful. You take possession of your day before the world has a chance to claim it. You don't need a 2-hour morning ritual. You need a consistent, empowering sequence that belongs to you. Your evenings matter equally. The way most people wind down screens until midnight, processing the anxieties of tomorrow, stimulating their nervous systems precisely when they need to be moving toward recovery, explains why so many people wake up already exhausted. An intentional evening routine, even 15 minutes of writing tomorrow's priorities, reading something that nourishes your mind, a moment of genuine quiet reflection, transforms the quality of your sleep and the quality of every morning that follows. Keep routines simple. Don't build an elaborate 20-step process that requires perfect conditions to execute. 2 or 3 anchor habits, the non-negotiables that form the scaffolding of your day, are more powerful than 20 aspirational practices you abandon by the second week. Build the foundation first. Add structure as it solidifies. And when the days come, and they will come, when your mind tries to negotiate, just this once, skip it today, you deserve a break. Recognize that voice for what it is. It's the old you, negotiating for its survival. Every time you follow through anyway, you send a message that goes deeper than behavior. You become someone who keeps promises to themselves. And that identity, the identity of a person whose commitments mean something, is the foundation of everything. Chapter 9. Develop skills that make you valuable. Vision without capability is fantasy. The life you're building requires more than the right mindset and powerful routines. It requires that you bring something to the table that the world genuinely needs. It requires that you become valuable. Here's a truth the comfortable life will never tell you. The marketplace does not pay for your time. It pays for the value you generate. 2 people can invest the exact same number of hours, but the one who has developed rare, powerful skills can earn multiples of what the other earns. Not because of luck, not because of connections, because of the gap in what they're each capable of delivering. Close that gap, and you take control of your future. Remain on the side of the gap where you're easily replaced, and you remain forever at the mercy of circumstances. The first step is honest self-assessment. What do you actually do well? What comes to you with unusual ease that others seem to struggle with? Where do people spontaneously seek your input or assistance? Now hold that against a second question. Where does the world have urgent, genuine, unsatisfied need? The intersection of those 2 answers is where your value proposition lies, where your natural inclinations meet market demand. That's your territory. Once you've identified it, make a non-negotiable commitment. Become exceptional, not competent, not adequate, not pretty good for someone who started recently. Exceptional, There is a profound difference in outcomes between the person who knows enough to get by in a field and the person who goes so deep they become the obvious choice, the trusted authority, the person who gets called first. Most people dabble. They wade into a skill up to their ankles and then wade out again when the initial excitement fades. Depth creates value. Depth creates options. Depth creates the kind of leverage that eventually allows you to choose where you work, how you live, and who you serve. Mastery is built through deliberate, consistent, uncomfortable practice. Not passive consumption, active application. Not watching, doing. Not reading about the skill, using it in the real world and failing, adjusting, improving, repeating. There will be phases of frustration, so intense they will make you question whether you're capable of this. Push through them. That friction is not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're growing. You don't need anyone's permission to start. The resources available to anyone with an internet connection and a genuine commitment to learning have never been more extraordinary in all of human history. Books, online courses, mentors, communities, the barrier to knowledge has essentially collapsed. The only remaining barrier is discipline. Do you have enough to use what's available? Don't overlook the skills that sit beneath the technical ones. Communication, the ability to make complex ideas accessible, to persuade, to listen, may be the highest leverage skill in any field. Leadership, emotional intelligence, problem solving under pressure, the capacity to inspire others toward a shared vision. These skills amplify everything you've developed technically. The most successful people are those who combine deep technical competence with extraordinary human skills. Neither alone is enough. Shift your orientation from "what can I get" to "what can I give." This is not idealism, it's strategy. The more value you create for other people, the more abundance flows back toward you. Plant the seeds of genuine usefulness, and the harvest looks after itself. Skills are the currency of a life that belongs to you. Build them as though your freedom depends on it, because it does. Chapter 10. Create a bulletproof financial foundation. No matter how powerful your vision, no matter how strong your mindset, no matter how exceptional your skills, if your finances are in disarray, you are constantly operating from survival mode. And survival mode is the enemy of growth. When every day is dominated by financial anxiety, when the month runs out before the money does, when debt quietly demands its share of everything you earn, when the thought of an unexpected expense induces genuine panic, your capacity to think expansively, to take risks, to invest in yourself, to pursue the opportunities that could change everything, is severely diminished. You cannot build the best version of your life while fighting just to keep the lights on. Here's the truth that strips away every financial myth. It is not about how much money you make. It is about what you do with whatever you have. The person earning 6 figures who has never learned to manage money is often more financially stressed than the person earning a modest income, who has developed the discipline and strategy to make every dollar work. Money doesn't cure money problems. Behavior does. Begin with visibility. You cannot navigate what you refuse to look at. Sit down today, not eventually, and account for where every dollar you earn is actually going. All of it? Every subscription, every impulsive purchase, every small expense that adds up to something significant by month's end. Most people avoid this exercise because they fear what they'll find. Do it anyway. The discomfort of knowing is infinitely less damaging than the consequences of continued blindness. Once you have clarity, build your first foundation, a small emergency fund. Even a modest one changes your psychological relationship with money entirely. When you have even a basic buffer between you and the next unexpected crisis, the car breakdown, the medical bill, the sudden gap in income, you stop operating in a state of perpetual financial terror. That stability, even in a small form, gives you the capacity to think and choose from a place of relative strength, rather than fear. Attack your debt with urgency. Debt is a direct claim on your future. It is the past purchasing power over your present and tomorrow. High interest debt in particular is corrosive. Prioritize eliminating it with the same intensity you'd bring to any other existential threat, because that's precisely what it is. Every payment isn't just a number changing on a statement. It's one more degree of freedom reclaimed. Live below your means, not as deprivation, but as a deliberate investment in the future you're building. Before any purchase, ask a simple question. Does this serve the life I'm constructing, or does it delay it? Unnecessary spending is not a small thing. It is directly trading your future freedom for a present tense comfort you probably won't remember in 6 months. Simultaneously, expand your income. You can only cut so far, but your earning potential has no ceiling. This is where your skills become directly relevant. More value generated means more income possible. Explore the side project, the freelance work, the small business, the additional source. Multiple income streams aren't just about more money, they're about resilience. One stream can be interrupted. 3 are far more stable. Learn to invest. Saving alone will never build wealth. Inflation quietly consumes what sits still. You don't need to become a financial expert. You need to understand the fundamentals: compound growth, index funds, time in the market, the extraordinary power of starting earlier rather than later. The seeds planted today, given sufficient time, can grow into a security you cannot currently imagine. The goal was never money. The goal is freedom, options, peace of mind, the ability to make decisions from a position of stability rather than desperation. Money is simply the tool that purchases those things. Manage it with the seriousness that goal deserves. Chapter 11. Turn pain into power. There is no version of a full human life that contains no suffering. This is the truth no comfort seeking mind wants to acknowledge, but the most grounded and powerful people in the world have long since made peace with it. Pain is not an aberration. It is not a sign that something has gone wrong with your particular life. It is the unavoidable curriculum of existence. You have been hurt. You have failed at things that mattered deeply. You have lost things and people and versions of yourself that you can never recover. And if you live long enough to do anything worth doing, more pain will come. But here is the truth that changes everything. Pain does not have to be merely something that happens to you. It can be something you use. The difference between the people who are destroyed by their suffering and those who are forged by it is not the nature of the pain. It's the response. And you have more control over that response than you may currently believe. The instinct is to run, to numb, to pour something, food, alcohol, entertainment, relationships, the bottomless scroll, over the top of the wound so you don't have to feel it. This works in the short term the way a bandage works on an infection. It conceals the problem while the real damage quietly spreads. Buried pain does not dissolve. It pressurizes, it waits, and it will surface eventually, in ways that feel completely out of proportion to whatever appears to have triggered them. Because the real source is much older and much deeper than the present moment, you have to face it, not dramatically, not in a way that requires you to fall apart, but with the steady, courageous willingness to look directly at what hurts and say, "You are real. You did real damage, and you do not get to run my life." Think of the people who have risen to genuine greatness, not just professional success, but the kind of depth and wholeness that makes a person truly worth knowing. Almost without exception, they have been through something. The fire that burns is the same fire that forges. A blacksmith puts raw metal through extreme heat and relentless hammering, not to destroy it, to transform it into something harder, sharper, more capable than the unworked material could ever be. What life is doing to you in your most painful seasons is the same process. It doesn't feel like transformation while it's happening. It feels like damage. But if you respond with intention rather than avoidance, the damage becomes the material. Reframe the question you ask when pain arrives. Instead of "Why is this happening to me?" which is the question of the victim, ask, "What is this trying to build in me?" Pain is rarely random. Betrayal teaches you about boundaries and self-respect. Failure teaches you about strategy and resilience. Loss teaches you about what actually matters. When the peripheral things have been stripped away, when you search for the lesson instead of just absorbing the blow, pain stops being pointless and becomes purposeful. Then use it. Pain without action hardens into bitterness. Pain channeled into creative, constructive, forward. Moving action transforms into the most powerful fuel you have ever had access to. Use the anger from betrayal to construct boundaries so strong no one can cross them again. Use the shame of failure to drive a work ethic that makes failure increasingly unlikely. Use the grief of loss to live with a depth of presence and intention that honors what you've lost by fully inhabiting what remains. And when the weight becomes genuinely unbearable, when the journey ahead looks impossibly long, don't look at the whole road. Find the next single step. Survival itself, on the worst days, is an act of profound courage. Getting out of bed, showing up, refusing to disappear, that is victory. And victory accumulates. One day, not today, perhaps not soon, but one day, you will look back at the season of pain that felt like it was ending you, and you will recognize it as the season that made you. Chapter 12. Master the art of patience and long-term thinking. We are living inside a civilization that has weaponized impatience. Everything around you is engineered for now. Same-day delivery, instant content, overnight success stories, the algorithmic celebration of the meteoric rise. Everywhere you look, someone seems to be winning immediately, and the culture has quietly absorbed the assumption that speed is the measure of success. That if something isn't working quickly, it probably isn't working. This assumption has destroyed more potential than any other single belief. Because here is what the culture doesn't show you. The years before the overnight success. The decade of invisible work before the sudden recognition. The compounding that happened in private, in rooms no one was watching, before the results became undeniable. Every tree you've ever admired for its height had years, decades, of growth underground before it broke through the surface. Patience is not simply the willingness to wait. It is the discipline of how you behave while waiting, of continuing to show up, continuing to do the work, continuing to believe in what you're building even when the evidence of progress is thin. Most people do not fail because their goals were impossible. They fail because they quit while the roots were still forming, because they couldn't endure the discomfort of slow, invisible progress. They abandoned the process at precisely the moment before the breakthrough. The metaphor that illuminates this most clearly. Imagine planting a seed in rich soil, watering it, providing it with light, and then digging it up every few days to check whether it's grown yet. You would kill the very thing you're trying to nurture. Growth requires darkness, time, and trust. The roots form before anything breaks the surface. Your transformation works the same way. One of the most corrosive habits in the era of social media is comparison. You see the polished, curated highlights of someone else's journey, the finish line photo, the announcement of the milestone, without any visibility into the years of unglamorous effort that preceded it. You compare your messy, confusing, uncertain middle to their celebrated arrival. And in that comparison, you feel behind. You feel inadequate. You feel like you must be doing something wrong, You're not. You're on your own timeline. The only comparison that serves you is the comparison between who you were yesterday and who you are today. Long-term thinking is the other essential piece of this. Patience without vision is merely endurance. What sustains you through the slow seasons is keeping your eyes on the bigger picture, knowing why the present difficulty is worth navigating, because of what it's building toward. Long-term thinking asks the question most people never pause long enough to ask. How will this decision look 5 years from now? 10 years from now? The person who can answer that question clearly and act accordingly has a profound advantage over everyone making decisions based on how they feel in the next 5 minutes. The time is going to pass either way. A year from now, you will be somewhere. The question is only whether you'll look back on that year as the one where you began the transformation, or as another year you intended to start. Fall in love with the process, not just the destination, the daily practice. When the goal is fitness, love the workout, not just the imagined future body. When the goal is mastery, love the hours of practice, not just the imagined future expertise. The person who falls in love with the process will always out-persist the person who's only in love with the outcome. The greatest transformations are not sudden. They are quiet, patient, compound, built in the unglamorous hours, in the moments of ordinary discipline, day after day, until one day the results become impossible to ignore. Trust the process. Stay in it. The life you're building is worth every day it takes. Chapter 13. Build a relentless work ethic. Here is the simple, unsparing truth that sits beneath everything else. You have to work harder than you have before, more consistently than you've managed yet, for longer than feels reasonable, not with reckless, unsustainable, self-destroying intensity, but with a kind of steady, relentless day in and day out commitment that continues long after motivation has faded, long after the initial excitement has dissolved, long after the people who started alongside you have quietly found reasons to stop. The word that matters here is relentless, not occasionally hard working, not intensely dedicated when conditions are favorable. Relentless, meaning you show up when you're tired, when you're discouraged, when progress is invisible, when it would be genuinely easier to quit. Because here's the uncomfortable reality. Most people stop the moment it becomes hard, and that is precisely the moment that separates the people who actually transform their lives from the people who only ever wanted to. Imagine a climber ascending a formidable peak. The air gets thinner as they climb. The path becomes more demanding. Every step costs more than the step before it. At multiple points, the rational case for turning around and returning to the comfortable valley below seems overwhelming. And yet, the climber who reaches the summit does so not through one heroic leap, but through the accumulation of thousands of small, exhausted, deliberate steps taken one after another. That is what relentless work ethic looks like from the outside. From the inside, it feels like simply refusing to stop. The foundation of this ethic is discipline, the capacity to do what is necessary when every feeling is advocating for something easier. Discipline is not the absence of desire for comfort. It is the ability to feel that desire and act in accordance with your values anyway. It is waking up while it's still dark, when every part of your body wants more sleep. It is dedicating an hour to your most important work before the world knows you're awake. It is honoring your commitments to yourself with the same seriousness you'd honor them to someone you deeply respect. But let's be precise about what relentless work means, because there's an important distinction to draw. Working relentlessly does not mean working mindlessly. Many people stay furiously busy without ever moving forward. They are in motion without direction, producing activity without producing results. The person with a true work ethic is ruthlessly focused on the actions that matter. They've learned to distinguish between what moves them forward and what merely feels productive. They prioritize with conviction and eliminate the noise with equal conviction. Create non-negotiables. These are the 2 or 3 daily commitments that you fulfill without exception, regardless of circumstance, mood, or external pressure. A writer who commits to 500 words a day, no matter what, will produce a body of work that a writer who waits for inspiration will never approach. A person committed to an hour of skill, building daily without exception, will become someone unrecognizable in 2 years. These small, consistent non-negotiables are the quiet engines of extraordinary outcomes. When setbacks come, and they will come, with a reliability that you can count on, the person with a relentless work ethic does not interpret them as verdicts. They interpret them as information. Not, "I'm not meant for this," but, "What does this teach me about how to move forward more effectively?" That single reorientation in the face of failure or rejection or unexpected obstacles is what separates the people who ultimately arrive from the people who ultimately stop. Surround yourself with people who embody this standard. The level of effort you consider normal is powerfully shaped by the effort you witness around you every day. If you are the most driven person in your circle, find a bigger circle. Their standards will eventually become your standards. Their hunger will ignite yours. And through all of it, keep your why burning, not as a motivational poster, as a living, visceral connection to the life you're building and why it matters. Because on the days when exhaustion is real and doubt is loud, your why is the only thing with enough weight to keep you moving. One day, you'll look back at the unglamorous hours that nobody saw. The early mornings, the late nights, the disciplined hours while everyone else was distracted. And you'll understand that those weren't just how you built your dream. They were how you built yourself. Chapter 14. Stay grounded as you rise. There is a specific danger that comes not from failure, but from success. When you've done the work, when the transformation is genuinely underway, when the life you've been building begins to take visible form, something shifts. Opportunities arrive. Recognition follows. The gap between who you were and who you've become becomes apparent to the people around you. And this moment, which you've worked so hard to reach, carries its own particular peril. The higher the altitude, the more critical the root system. Think of what happens to a tree that grows tall without establishing deep roots. It looks impressive. It fills the sky. But when the first significant storm arrives, the wind topples it completely, because nothing beneath the surface has the strength to hold it upright. Your accomplishments are the branches. Your character, your values, your humility, your fundamental sense of who you are beneath the titles and achievements, those are the roots. And the taller you grow, the deeper those roots must go. Success has a way of making people forget the conditions that created it. The habits and disciplines that built the foundation get quietly abandoned once a degree of comfort arrives. The hunger that drove the climb dulls when the summit comes into view, and almost without noticing, people begin to drift back toward exactly the patterns they fought so hard to escape, but now with more sophisticated justifications and a more comfortable lifestyle to distract from it. The antidote begins with memory. Keep a living, conscious connection to the version of you who was desperate to change, who was hungry, uncertain, starting from nothing, willing to do whatever it took. That person is still part of you. Honor them by never completely losing touch. Their hunger was not weakness. It was the engine. Don't let it idle. Gratitude is a profound anchor, not the performative kind, the daily, genuine acknowledgement of how far you've actually come, of what you have that you once only hoped for, of what's possible now that felt impossible before. When gratitude is real, arrogance cannot take root in the same soil. Here's something critical to understand about identity. You are not your achievements. You are not your job title, your financial position, your follower count, your accomplishments. Those things are external. They can fluctuate, be taken, or prove less permanent than they seemed. The person who has built their entire identity on external markers lives in a state of underlying fragility, always dependent on the next confirmation that they're still valuable. The person who knows who they are beneath all of that, who has rooted their identity in character, in values, in who they are in the private moments when no one is watching, is genuinely stable. No circumstance can fundamentally shake that. Watch the people who enter your life as you rise. New people will appear, drawn to what you've built. Some will be genuinely aligned with who you are and where you're going. Others will be drawn to what you represent rather than who you actually are. Protect the relationships with the people who knew you before, who care about you as a person, who will tell you the truth, who will call you out when success starts to distort your perception of yourself. Stay curious. Stay hungry to learn. The most dangerous sentence in any successful person's inner monologue is "I know enough." The moment you believe that, the decline has already begun. Remain a student of your field of human nature, of the craft of living well. The most grounded people I've ever encountered are the ones who never stopped being genuinely interested in what they don't yet know, and serve. Actively, intentionally, use what you've built to lift someone else. Mentor. Share the lessons that were hard to learn. Give in ways that cost you something. Because service is the most reliable check on ego that exists. When you are genuinely focused on what you can contribute, the ego's whispers about what you deserve become much quieter. You've worked too hard to lose yourself on the way up. Stay rooted. Stay real. Rise and remain exactly who you decided to become. Chapter 15. Never stop rebuilding. Here is the truth that completes everything. This is not something you do once. There is no finish line. There is no arrival point beyond which rebuilding becomes unnecessary. The life you're creating is not a destination. It is a living, breathing, continuously evolving work in progress. The moment you begin to believe you've completed the transformation, the moment complacency takes root, you have already begun sliding backward. Think of the strongest house ever built. Even it requires maintenance. The paint fades. The foundation shifts with the seasons. The roof weathers. Neglect the small things long enough, and the cracks become structural. Your life works with the same precision. Old habits will attempt to reassert themselves. Comfort, that most seductive of enemies, will slowly reclaim the territory you fought so hard to clear. You may not even notice it happening until the day you look up and realize the person you spent everything becoming has quietly started reverting toward the person you worked everything to leave behind. This is why rebuilding is not a chapter in your story. It is the story. Growth is never static. You are either moving forward or you are drifting backward. There is no stable middle ground where progress simply pauses and holds while you rest. The same current that carried you here is always moving. And if you stop swimming, it carries you backward. The enemy of the advanced stage of transformation is not failure. It's success. When you're struggling, the hunger stays sharp. The focus stays clear. The discipline stays necessary. But when things are going well, when some version of the life you dreamed of has materialized, a dangerous thought enters. Asterisk, I've made it. I can relax now. Asterisk, that thought is the beginning of regression. Comfort kills the momentum that built everything. The counter to complacency is always a new vision. The moment one goal is reached, the next must be set. Not because what you've achieved isn't meaningful, but because growth is the condition under which humans are most alive. We are not wired for arrival. We are wired for becoming. Remove the forward motion, and the spirit begins to atrophy, regardless of how good the circumstances look from outside. Build regular reflection into your life. Pause quarterly. Look honestly at your habits, your relationships, your mindset. Ask the question with the full weight it deserves. Am I still becoming the person I decided to be? Or have I started compromising again? These evaluations are not self-punishment. They are navigation. Small course corrections made early prevent the massive disorientation of having drifted too far to recognize yourself. Stay curious. The world is not standing still while you build. New information, new skills, new perspectives, new ways of operating, they're emerging constantly. The person who clings rigidly to what already worked will be outpaced by the person who remains open and adaptive. Commit to being a student for life. Read voraciously. Seek mentors who are operating at levels above where you currently stand. Expose yourself to ideas that challenge your existing frameworks. And when the rebuilding requires releasing something you've outgrown, an old identity, a relationship that no longer fits who you're becoming, a way of thinking that served its purpose and no longer does, let it go without excessive ceremony. Growth sometimes requires shedding, and shedding can feel like loss. But you cannot step fully into the next version of yourself with both hands full of the last one. There will also be seasons that feel like starting over entirely. A loss, a failure, an unexpected collapse of something that seemed permanent. In those moments, know this: everything you have built, every skill, every lesson, every ounce of character developed through difficulty, comes with you. Even if the external circumstances reset completely, you never truly go back. You start again as a fundamentally different person than you were the first time. And that difference is everything. Never stop rebuilding, not because you are broken, but because becoming is what you're for. Conclusion: your new life starts now. You've arrived at the end of this audiobook. But understand clearly, this is not an ending. This is the precise moment where the real work begins. You've journeyed through the architecture of genuine transformation. You've learned what it means to face yourself without illusion, to shed the weight of a past you were never meant to carry forever. You've explored how to dismantle the habits that were quietly managing your decline, how to construct routines that make your growth almost inevitable, how to forge a mind that doesn't break under pressure. You've engaged with the profound importance of your financial foundation, the transformative alchemy of turning pain into power, and the discipline of staying grounded in your character as the external landscape of your life begins to shift. You have the map, but here is the essential truth that separates the people who change from the people who only ever think about changing. Information alone does nothing. Knowledge that stays in your head and never moves into your hands, your decisions, your daily habits, your relationships, your actual lived experience, that knowledge is merely an interesting story you tell yourself. The transformation isn't in the understanding. It's in the application, day after day, especially on the days when you don't feel like it, especially in the moments when the old patterns are calling loudest. There will be days when this feels electric, when the momentum is real, and the progress is visible, and the person you're becoming feels genuinely close. And there will be days when the work feels endless, and the progress feels invisible, and the old you feels far more accessible than the new one. Both kinds of days are part of the same journey. What matters, the only thing that truly matters, is that you don't stop. Growth is not a straight line upward. It curves, plateaus, dips, surges, surprises you. The compound effect of consistent action doesn't look like much in the early stages. But the nature of compound growth is that it accelerates. The returns feel small until, suddenly, they feel enormous. And the people who reach the enormous returns are the ones who kept going during the period when the returns felt small. Destroying the old you is not an act of self-hatred. It is an act of profound self-respect. The acknowledgement that you are capable of something far greater than what you've settled for, and the decision to stop settling. Every failure that brought you here, every stumble, every season that felt like it was breaking you, it was the preparation, not for the life you planned, for something more authentic, more forged, more genuinely yours. Do not wait for the perfect conditions. They will never arrive. Do not wait until you feel ready. Readiness is constructed through action, not granted before it. The perfect moment is right now, in this breath, in the next choice you make, however small, however imperfect, however uncertain. The new you is not born in a single dramatic moment. It is assembled in the quiet, disciplined, unglamorous choices that nobody witnesses. It is built in the early morning hours before the world wakes up. It is built in the moments you choose discomfort over comfort, honesty over convenience, growth over stagnation. It is built one decision at a time, until those decisions are no longer decisions. They are simply who you are. You have everything you need. You have always had everything you need. The old chapter is finished. This page is blank. Write something extraordinary on it. Asterisk destroy the old you, rebuild from zero, and never stop becoming who you were always capable of being. Asterisk, asterisk, your new life starts now. Asterisk.